Hi everyone. I hope you are all doing well on this coronavirus quarantine day. I hope everyone is staying healthy and you are finding fun things to do. Today I'm going to demo how to wire wrap a bead into a pendant, as well as wire wrapping a stone into a pendant to make a necklace. It's very simple to do and it's a lot of fun, and it can make something really pretty. So I'm just going to put this down so you can watch. So this is a bead. Looks like a stone. It's an amethyst. See an amethyst at the end there. So what I'm going to do is there's a hole right here. I don't know if you can see. It's a little tricky to probably see from where you are. But I am going to wrap this. So I'm going to take some, I'm going to show you there's all sorts of different tools I use when I do wire wrapping. There's many different kinds, different sizes of wire, different gauges. And the higher the gauge, the thinner the wire. So this is 20 gauge. It's probably hard to read because it's all backwards for you. This is 20 gauge wire. And this is 24. And you can see how much, don't know if you can tell, it's much thinner. The 24 is much thinner than the 20. So rule of thumb is when you're wire wrapping, the higher the number, the thinner the gauge is. And depending on what you're making, depends on what gauge wire you want to use. So for this particular project, I want to use the 20 gauge. And this is silver-plated copper wire. You can get it in gold, you can get it in silver, you can get it in different plated metals. This is silver-plated. I just find it's not really that expensive. It's easy to use and it makes things look pretty. Now, so you can see I've got this pretty straight, but sometimes the wire that you take out will not be all that straight. So let me show you a different piece. So if you see this piece is kind of curvy and wanky, and sometimes it's hard to get it straightened. So what I have is I have these tools that have little grippers on them, and you can put them on here and it straightens out the wire very easily, which is a handy tool to have, especially if you're going to be doing wire wrapping. This way, if you need to straighten things out, there you go. Then I also have my wire cutters. I have flat nose pliers, and I have round nose pliers. This is pretty much all I use when I'm doing wire wrapping, plus my hands. So I've pre-cut a piece of wire, of 20-inch wire, and this is, I don't know, about 3 inches or so. I tend to like to have a little extra wire just to work with. I don't like to cut things too short, too tight, so that way I have more room to work with, because when you're wire wrapping, often it's a pretty organic thing to do. Okay, so what I'm going to do first, before I put this on in the bead here, and there is a bead, it's kind of hard to tell, but see there is a hole in there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a bezel. It's just a hole so you can put the chain through, and I've made one ahead of time just so you could kind of see what it looks like. So I'm going to do one of those first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my round nose pliers, and you can find round nose pliers in different sizes. This is a small one. I like to use these small ones a lot. I just find they're easier to use. There's bigger ones here too. But for wire wrapping, I find I just get a better grip and easier grip with the smaller pliers rather than the bigger ones. So that's just a personal preference. When you start doing these things, you can try them out for yourself. So here's my piece of 20 gauge wire. And I'm going to put my pliers, my round nose pliers here about here, okay? Then I'm going to bend the wire. And you see, I just used my hand to do that. It's really, this wire is pretty pliable. Okay, so I'm bent it about 90-degree angle here. And then I'm going to continue with this wire. I'm going to loop it around here. But I want to make the loop big enough so that I can fit a chain through it. So I'm going to go like that with my thumb, like that, and it kind of crosses it over like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hand and I'm going to just wrap this wire around here about 2 or 3 times. Okay. So I could snip off this end here. Let me show you what it looks like now that I've wrapped this. And it's pretty organic. So what I can do, often when I do my wire wrapping, my loop winds up being a little sideways. So I just take my pliers, hold on the bottom here, take my pliers and move it up like that so it's straight. So I can cut this end off, but usually I wait until the very end before I do, because I want to be sure that I don't need to wrap it with this anymore. Okay. So actually, all right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this other end here and I'm going to thread it through the bead. There it is. So it's now threaded through the bead. And now I'm going to bend the wire up a bit. And you can gauge how big you want, how much you want to hang your pendant. So if you want it hanging down long and have a long loop like that, you can see how long that is. Or if you want it shorter, like that. I kind of prefer it shorter. I think it just looks more elegant like that. So now that I have that set, I'm actually going to clip off this end here with my cutters. And there's always like a little bit of a, when you use your cutters, there's always like a little bit of an end here. So what I do is I take my flat nose pliers and I try and tuck the end or just press it down into the rest of the wrap. So that way it doesn't snag on anything, it doesn't scratch on you. And it's in there. So now what I'm going to do, I have the wire through the loops, through the hole here, and I'm going to wrap this working wire around here to solidify the pendant. So I usually wrap it, I don't know, about 2 or 3 times at least. Sometimes I do it more because you want to make it look pretty. Okay, and now it's wrapped. I'm going to trim off this wire. And I'm going to flatten the end here so that it's in part and not catching on anything. wire is a sign it wants to. Sometimes the wire will not do what you want to immediately, and you have to kind of play with it so that it lays flat. There we go. Okay. So now you can see that I have the pendant set, but it's a little little crooked. So what I'm going to do is straighten it out a bit with my pliers. And this end is just giving me a little bit of grief, so I'm going to see if I can get that tucked in a little more. There we go. Luckily, the wire can be very forgiving. Let's see if I can trim that a little more here. There. I'm going to flatten just this little bit, and then we're good to go. Okay. So let me straighten this up a little bit here. And we have our pendant. So I will show you also, I have a chain here. I'm going to just put through so you can see how well it fits. So what I like to do, now that I have this set like this, I like to turn my loop a little sideways, so that way I don't have to use any special jump ring or anything on the chain, and this will lay flat like that. So what I do is I just take my pliers, my flat nose pliers, and I just twist it a little bit like that. And then chain goes through, and voila, you have a necklace. And I'm making this for one of my friends, Emily, one of my good friends from school, back from college days. So I'm just gonna round the this wire a little more. And we have a lovely pendant. So now what I'm going to do, if there's other ways you can wrap, if say you have a stone that doesn't have a hole in it. So I've done a few, these are a couple of pieces that I wire wrap. This is a piece of smoky quartz. This is smoky quartz crystal that I wrapped already. And this is a piece of fluorite that I wrapped already. And these don't have holes. These are completely undrilled. These are set crystals. So I'm going to show you how to wrap one of these too and make it into a pendant. So I have just another piece of smoky quartz, the smoky quartz crystal. And what I'm going to do, I usually like to take a bigger piece of wire. So this is about 3 inches or so. I always like to have a little more to work with. I'd rather have a little more than less. So I'm just going to straighten out my wire a bit with my wire straighteners here. It just makes things so much easier to work with. Just going to straighten a little bit more. Okay, now I'm going to make my loop. So again, I'm going to start about an inch or so down from the top of the wire. I'm going to bend this down at a 90-degree angle. Then I'm going to push the wire kind of down underneath and around the pliers here. So you're making a loop, and then I'm going to wrap this wire around about 2 or 3 times with my hands. Okay. Actually, you know, I'm going to redo that one because I want to put a little curlicue on the end there, and I want to show you how to do that. So I'm going to cut some more wire off here. So bear with me while I take some more wire. I didn't leave enough room. Okay, so I'm going to just cut some more wire here. Just straighten out the end. Okay, so I'm going to actually start a bit further down, about this far, about a couple inches. Bend this about 90 degrees, hold on to the end of the wire and loop it underneath. Then I'm going to wrap this about 2 or 3 times. Once, twice, and 3 times. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, let me straighten out my loop here. Do you see these little curlicues, the swirls, the spirals here? I'm going to make a spiral on here. So the way you do that, you take your round nose pliers and take it to the end here, make a little loop, and there's a loop. So you're going to keep going. You're going to put your round nose pliers in the middle here, and you're just going to keep almost like rolling it. So you're making a spiral as you go along. And you can make them as big or as little as you want. I don't want this one to be terribly big because the stone I'm wrapping isn't huge either. So then I've got that. So then now it comes time to wrap. So this is tricky. It can be tricky, but it's also a very organic thing because every stone is a little different shaped, in length and size, width. So usually I like to look at the stone and see where I want it to rest on the wire. So this is going to be, the loop is going to be in the back, like that, eventually when you're done. And because that's where the chain is going to hold when you make this into a pendant. So I like, just looking at this, this has like a nice flat area here. So I think that's ideal for putting as the back of the pendant. So what I'm going to do is I put the pendant or the stone like this. And then I'm going to work with the wire however I see fit. It depends on how the stone is created, on where you put the wire. So, but I always want to make sure that I have the wire so that it's holding the stone so it doesn't fall out of the wire. So what I do is, in this case, I'm going to put the wire up like this. I'm going to wrap it around like that. And you can see what I'm doing here. And I'm going to wrap it again because I want to make sure that this wire is going to hold on this pendant. So this is actually holding pretty well. See, the wire's really engaged. I'm holding this at the top loop. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this wire and I'm going to make another spiral. And these spirals not only look pretty, they actually help to hold the wire in place. If you look at the back, what I've done here, do you see how the wires, I've just kind of woven it around naturally, and it holds the wire in place like this. Okay, so I'm going to take, back to the front here, I'm going to take my round nose pliers. Again, I'm going to make a little loop. Like that. And then I'm going to continue rolling this wire with the loop and looping it, making a spiral. You can see it's getting bigger as I go. Okay, so there's my spiral. I'm not going to make it any bigger because I want this to lay on the flat of the stone, and I want it also to be able to hold the stone to stabilize it, to keep the wire on. So what I'm going to do is I'm taking the wire with the spiral here, and I'm going to just try and flatten it onto the stone. I just basically move the wire and just press this down, and there's the first one on. Now I'm going to take this upper one and I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to put it up here. So you can see I'm going to take the stone, hold on to the stone in the spiral here, and I'm just going to press down. And there, that one is on. So now if I hold on to the loop, that's a real test. The stone isn't moving in the wire at all. It's there. It's held very, very well. Now, and I have my loop here is pretty perpendicular to the stone, not as much as I'd like, so I'm going to just make this so that the loop is more at a 90-degree angle, as much as I can. It's perpendicular to the front of the stone, so that way I can fit a neck chain through. So that's how you make a wrapped loop, or wrapped wire wrapping on stones, and also a pendant. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, feel free to message me or just post messages on here. I will be posting this, so it will be staying, this video will stay on my page. I hope you have a great day, and tune in next week for some more. I will be teaching you something else new. Have a great day. Bye.